The Someone You Should Know podcast with Rick Anthony, sponsored by Summarize. Repurpose podcast, webinars, and interviews for social media, websites, and email with the help of AI, all thanks to the help of Summarize. Hi, I'm Rick Anthony, and welcome to the Someone You Should Know podcast, the podcast that focuses on musicians, authors, and interesting people. We like to say we're making a difference one artist at a time. So sit back, have a cold one, and get ready to meet someone you should know. On the podcast, a guy I've known from his work with other podcast guests. He's the keyboardist for the Ides of March. You know Jim Peterick from that. And also, he is the producer of one of my dearest friends, comedian Tim Cavanagh. He's got a project called Isle of View, and we're going to feature some music from that. Will you please welcome my friend Scott May. Hey, bud. How are ya?
Hey, man. How you doing?
I'm doing good. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing.
Very good. Scott, your career spans across so many domains, from comedy to writing. How do you manage to maintain the diverse interests? Do they kind of go from one side of the brain to the other side, and how does one influence the other?
It's all the same. It's all one thing. To me, it's I've been blessed with a mind that sees things a little bit differently, and so my music influences my writing influences my music, and to me it's all the same. It's all one thing, and sometimes it's got a melody, sometimes it's letters and sentences on a piece of paper, other times it's telling people how to walk around and put blocking on the stage. So it's all one thing for me.
You were born to do this. You realize that, don't you? Let's talk about your early days as far as that goes. How in the world did you get started in this? Was it a style of music or a family member, brother, sister, anything like that got you in music?
When I was a kid, very, very young, many moons ago, when the dinosaurs were outside, my grandfather used to watch the Lawrence Welk show. And I used to see Jerry Burke playing the Hammond B3, and I thought it was really cool. And I used to go on the side of the couch and we had these big pillows, and I would put up these pillows on each other and make off like I was playing the organ. And my mother would go, "What are you doing?" I go, "I'm pretending that I'm playing the organ." And so when I was 6 years old, she took me for organ lessons. And my uncle was a great stride piano player, later became an organist, thanks to me. And I started to play the organ. My teacher was a lady named Dorothy Banyard, the last of the great lady nightclub organists in Chicago in the late 50s and early 60s. And she got me into the Great American Songbook, and I discovered great songwriting. And I never listened to rock and roll when I was a kid. I had a beatnik uncle I listened to jazz, classical, and theater pipe organ music, and then when I got to be a freshman in high school, I discovered rock and roll and girls at the same day. So,
and you realize that girls like rock and rollers, or musicians especially. Yeah. We've learned the same thing, too, in radio as far as that goes. I learned that the musicians get the pretty girls, and the DJs get the beaten up red-haired stepchildren.
I was in radio for a long time, but I mean, I actually turned out pretty good. I'm married to a wonderful gal who's as nutty as I am, and gave me a great family, and so I've been a happy man for many, many years.
Good, very good. Props to your bride. What's her name?
Chris,
thank you so much for what you do to this guy here, and keep him happy, keep him healthy, and keep him wise as far as that goes. Speaking of radio, you worked with one of my radio brothers, Kevin Matthews, on the Loop. Can you tell us about those days?
I was the house band at a club called the Funny Firm in Chicago.
Yep.
And there was and we got tied in with the Loop, with WLUP somehow, and I was like the Paul Schaefer of the Funny Firm, and there was a comic named Len Ostrovich, and I was actually part of his act. And so Kevin Matthews came in to do one of his comedy jams at the Funny Firm, saw me doing this stuff, and he says, "Hey, buddy, would you like to come on my show and do this?" I said, "Sure." And I went up and I just brought my keyboard and sat there, and I became this character, Scott Main, his one-armed orchestra. And I was, when the Loop was the Loop, the number one station in Chicago, I was right there in the thick of it.
Love it, love it, love it. Have you seen Kevin anytime soon? I know you had a battle with MS for a while.
Yeah, I saw Kevin not too. Actually, I was at a party with the Chicago disc jockey Mancow.
Oh, really? Okay.
So it was also a dear friend. And I was at Mancow's got this beautiful place up in the north side of Chicago, and Chris and I were sitting there, and Kyle comes over and he goes, "Hey, did you see Kevin?" I go, "He's here." Because those guys were like bitter enemies back in the day. Mm-hmm. Mancow and Kevin, that was oil and water. I go, "Yeah, he's right over there." I got up and around, Kev, "Hey, buddy." I was doing text with Kevin this morning. He's doing great, and he's a very religious man, and he's got a book out about some religious stuff, and it's a whole nother side of him that a lot of people don't know. But Kev's doing well.
Please do me a favor next time you see him. Tell him I said hello, and I wish him well, and I hope he continues on his to stay healthy, and because I know he was going through a scare there for quite a while.
Yeah, well, he's a force of nature. I mean, and all these years later, people who meet me, a lot of people, a lot of Kev heads out there, and a lot of people remember me from his show. I was sometimes 3 or 4 days a week I was on his show, so it was crazy.
I loved his impressions he used to do during the day. Those are always
right.
Yeah. Jim Shorts too. All right, very good. Well, listen, you've been the keyboardist with the Ides of March since 1990. That is a long time. How do you keep that going in an industry when you've got so many ups and downs, and band members not always getting along? How have you and Jimmy been together for so long?
Well, the Ides of March have been together for 60 years, mm-hmm. All the original guys, and I'm the new guy, 34, 35 years. And they were all from the city of Berwyn. We went to the same schools.
Berwyn!
It's Chicago's Burbank.
That's a Chicago joke, folks. Sven Gooley had that. Berwyn! Sven
Gooley, Rich Cos, the great Rich Cos. But I've known the guys forever and ever and ever. And when Vehicle came out, they were heroes. And in 1990, when the band got back together to play Berwyn Summer Fair, they didn't have a full-time keyboard player, and they called me and asked me if I would think about it. I'm like, yeah, let me think about it. Yeah, of course. And it was supposed to be a one-shot deal, and it went so well that here we are, 34, 35 years later, and I'm so lucky. I'm so lucky to be part of that. It's almost like joining the Beatles for me,
Mm-hmm. I got to say, I think Jim is one of the people I've had on the show the most through the years. He's had so many different projects through the years, and I never had the nerve to ask him about his purple hair. What's the story on it?
I mean, look at me. You think I wake up like this? It's just, Jim's an iconoclast, and he's a creative guy, and everybody, you go to see Steven Tyler, and he's got tons of scarves around his microphone, and you see this guy does this guy does this guy does this, and Jim said, well, okay, so I'm going to dye my hair purple. Actually, he's not doing it anymore.
Really?
Yeah, he's moved on from that. But Jim is one of those guys. It's a never-ending story. There's always something creative going on with him.
Now, you mentioned the fact that you were working with Kevin Matthews, and you've also worked with Morton Downey Jr.
The boss.
What were some memorable moments from Mort?
Crazy Mort. Well, that was because of Kevin. He came in on a guest one time, as a guest on Kevin's show. Mort had moved to Chicago, and he was with a media company there, and he was getting ready to go and do a nationwide syndicated show. And he came in on Kevin's show to be a guest, and he saw me there with the keyboard, and he looked and goes, "Wow, this is great." You know, Mort was a singer. Mort is a fine singer and a great musician. And he says, after the show, he pulls me aside. He says, "Would you like to do this for my show?" And we were everywhere in the United States except Chicago, believe it or not.
Wow.
And I said, "Sure." And so I would go do Kevin in the morning, and then I'd hang out for a little while. Then I'd go over to the major broadcasting studios, about 8 blocks away from where the loop was, and do 3 hours of radio with Mort nationwide.
Wow, that is nice. I love gigs like that, and that was cool. Great stories. Now, it's music time. What do you say we play some music? Your newest album is called Isle of View. That's ISLE of View, VIEW.
You get it?
Not like I love you. I love that.
That's exactly right. You get it.
You're playing more guitar on this album than before.
I do play a lot of guitar. With the Ides, I'm Hammond organ and mellotron and other keyboards with the Ides. But I played guitar for a long time, and I love playing guitar. And I've released a couple of albums, and I'm doing all of the lead guitar, none of the rhythm guitar, because I'm a complete rubbish rhythm guitar player. But play the song, and because I got some stories about the people on my record.
All right, very good. Cool Baby is the first one we're going to feature. What's the backstory on Cool Baby?
I just love that. I love that those words. Cool Baby, you're so cool, baby. It's so old and retro, and there's part of me that is that's still an unreconstructed beatnik from the 50s, and so I love that, and I wanted to write something that was, and again, there was, without getting into a big long story, there was a song called "What a Wonderful Thing We Have" by a band called the Fabulous Rhinestones.
Okay.
Radio people, I don't know if you know the song, but it's a great song, and it was my my idea to write a song that was like that, was kind of jazzy, kind of R&B, kind of, had a couple different flavors in it. And in this song, you'll hear a tremendous, one of the greatest jazz harmonica players on the planet, named Judy Tenuta, from Tokyo, Japan. And he's graced me with a fantastic jazz harmonica solo, and there's some great keyboard work. I play very little keyboards on this record, on this tune. The piano, there's a piano solo in there from my friend Tommy Godzilla Learshin, and I'm doing all the vocals.
All right, we're going to feature it right now. Cool Baby from the album I Love You. Here is Scott May on the Someone You Should Know podcast.
Isn't it sweet what fate dealt us this time? Well, it couldn't get any better. And I know if I give you all my loving, you'll save me a place in your heart. Turn around, take a look, take it for granted, girl. We'll never ever be apart. You're so cool, baby, and it's what a sight to be your fool, baby. You make everything alright. I don't wanna talk, I feel like moving. Let the beat of the night surround me. Give me a kiss that will last me forever. Take me in a way that will astound me. And know wise men sure enough had something, but things come to those who wait. Now we've got that good thing for ourselves, no time to lose, it's getting late. You're so cool, baby, it's too hard to decide to be your fool, baby. You make everything alright.
From Scott May. Scott is my guest this time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, and we got more music from Scott coming up here. But before we do, I want to say, hey, thanks so much for tuning into the Someone You Should Know podcast. We're heard on the web at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast.com. If you go there, you're going to find our recent news, our archive of more than 170 episodes, and a whole lot more. If you're enjoying the podcast, please leave us a review. Let us know how we're doing. Okay, we do appreciate that, too. According to Buzzsprout, the service that shares us to all the streaming platforms, so very blessed. Thank you so very much. We have streamed to over 2,200 cities and 90 countries around the world. A couple what would like to add to that list are Ocean View, Delaware, Richardson, Texas, Homer Glen, Illinois, and Mexico City, Mexico. Someone You Should Know podcast heard wherever quality streaming audio is available. Hi, it's Rick again for Summarize. Summarize repurposes your content from audio and video into engaging, shareable social posts, email content, summaries, quotes, and more. Hey, it's hard work to create high-quality content from podcasts and video content. Summarize gives you multiple types of content to support your marketing channels, from social media posts and email newsletters to show summaries and a whole lot more. As a matter of fact, if you go there today, you can upload up to 60 minutes for free and find out why I like it so much. Go to summarize.com to learn more. That's SUMMARAIZE.com. Thanks for listening, and now back to our podcast. I want to say thank you for listening. We're speaking with Scott May, musician, producer, and so much more. I said in the open that you worked with my dear friend, comedian Tim Cavanagh. Can you elaborate on Crazy Tim?
Tim is, when I was at the Funny Firm, that's where I met, I actually met Tim through Judy Tenuta, who we can talk about. Tim needed some production. Tim's a fine guitarist and singer, and that's a big part of his comedy. But he needed some production. And he came to me, and I worked with him, and then I produced his first record, and that started a long series of things that I've done with Tim. Tim is that rarest of comedians, a guy who's 99.999% totally clean, and still manages to be hilarious.
Absolutely. We just caught him a couple months ago, and it was the first exposure for my wife to see Tim, because I was married for almost 40 years to my first wife, and sadly I lost her in 2018. She had seen Tim umpteen times. We'd had dinner with him before. So it was my first exposure for my wife Leslie to see Tim, and she just absolutely fell in love with him. And Chris, his wife, is just absolutely the sweetest thing in the world, too.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's strange. Tim was, I believe, back when I did the show, it kicked off in 1999. He was the 5th episode that I did back then, and he was the very first episode that I did on this podcast. I wanted to make sure he was my very first one, because Tim and I go way, way, way back. Some fun stories and some fun things, and great music from Tim, and thanks for the production on it, because it's been very, very good. Now, you mentioned a name just a few seconds ago. You worked with Judy Tenuta, you worked with Bill Hicks, Emo Phillips. As a matter of fact, you got a Grammy nomination on Judy's album,
In Goddess We Trust.
In Goddess We Trust, absolutely. Yeah. What do you remember the days of working with Judy and Bill and Emo?
Oh, God. Well, that's three completely different universes there. Judy.
Hey, pigs! I miss her.
What happened? I had met Emo Phillips first, and before he was even Emo Phillips. Emo got started and had a bunch of different names. His real name is a Czech name that I'm not going to say because he doesn't like it.
Yep.
But he was called Phil Bufka. He was called Emo Farquhar. He was Phil Kidney for a while.
Kidney, I don't remember that one.
That was probably for about 10 minutes. But I was with some friends at a steakhouse in the suburbs of Chicago, and we didn't know there was going to be any entertainment at all. So, no, for your dining, laughing pleasure, here's Phil Kidney or whatever. I forget even what they said because I didn't catch the name because I didn't care. I wasn't in comedy at the time. And Emo went up on stage and devastated us. We'd had a few cocktails, and it was, oh my goodness, he was so good. We heckled him, he heckled us back, and it was completely funny, and we didn't heckle him bad, we heckled him good, and then when he used to do shows, he would run off the stage and run out the front door of the club or whatever, and he would just run out the front door. So I never got his name. 2 weeks later, I'm looking at the Chicago Reader, and there was an article in there about Emo Phillips, and there was this picture. I go, hey, that's the guy that we saw. And so he was playing at a club in Chicago, and we went to go see him. And after this, you had to walk through the dressing room to get to the men's room, believe it or not. And I stopped and I talked to him, and I told him I was a big fan of blah. He said, well, you have to meet my girlfriend, Judy Tenuta. She's a musician, and she needs some music. So we went after the show. Judy had lived about 4 blocks down. We walked from the club to and I met Judy. And she needed some production. She was doing a music video with Larry Bud Melman.
Oh, I know Larry Bud, absolutely.
From the Letterman Show.
Yeah.
She needed the soundtrack for the music video production, and I helped her out and did the music, and that started many years of. I became a music director and did 4 albums with her, and then In Goddess We Trust, which were recorded at Judy's house in Hollywood, was Grammy nominated, and we lost, and it's actually a cool story how we lost. We lost to Jonathan Winters.
Okay.
So if you're in the comedy world and you lose to Jonathan Winters, that's almost as good as winning.
Yeah.
Because there's no sadness, there's no disappointment, there's no envy. in losing to Jonathan Winters.
It's like losing to Meryl Streep, you know.
It's like in the songwriting contest. Well, I lost to Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
I lost to Paul Simon.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, that's awesome. You were also, like you mentioned earlier, you were also the house band for Chicago's Funny Firm. A wide variety of comedians in that thing. Some funny moments you remember there?
That I can talk about.
Sure.
Podcast.
Nothing will be used against you in a court of law, I promise.
Well, I was there when Bill Hicks went completely off the rails, and 136 people walked out of the club.
Wow.
Yeah, and Bill had. We go back to Kevin Matthews. Kevin Matthews was one of the guys who, at least in Chicago, got people yelling "Freebird" at inopportune moments. You know, I'm surprised nobody did it in a church. You know, bless me, Father, for I have Freebird. You know, but at the Bill was doing his act at the Funny Firm, and somebody yelled out "Freebird," and Bill just went. He goes, "Freebird." He goes, "Okay, Leonard Skinner, do I have a guitar up here? Do you see a band up here? Do you see a piano? What do you expect me to do? You expect me to start singing Freebird?" And then he launched. And again, I can't repeat exactly some of the things he said, but when I say that they were blasphemous and racist and insulting, you have no idea.
It was like manager Lee Elia yelling at the bleacher bums, "Get a job! What are you doing out here? If you don't complain."
That was like kissing him on the lips compared to what Bill said.
Oh, jeez, wow.
Oh boy, you know, it's unbelievable. And 136 people, I forget the count, got up and left and told them they didn't pay their bill. They were so incensed, and the other 270 people that were in the club were laughing so hard at what Bill was saying, and laughing so hard because it was tragic and funny and all that all at the same time. Yeah, but that's just one story. Wow. I mean, I've got a million of them.
Another great song from Isle of You is "A Better Man." The backstory on "A Better Man."
It's a co-write with Jim Peterick.
Oh, really? Okay, awesome.
I found a lyric sheet where it shouldn't have been, and I of mine. I said, "Why, this is good." And I sent it to Peterick. I says, "Is this anything?" And he flashed on it right away, and we fleshed it out. But I did not want to do the song. In Jim's style, and there's nothing wrong with Jim's style, but I wanted to be different. And in my idea, I wanted to do that big power ballad that Jim's Search Is Over, he's got a million of them. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to do that big power ballad acoustically, unplugged. So I'm dear friends with a bunch of Nashville musicians, and there's a band down in Nashville called the Time Jumpers. And the Time Jumpers are the cream of the cream of veteran session musicians in Nashville. Mm-hmm. For a long time, the second guitarist, the second chair, not the good guy, the second chair was Vince Gill. Wow. And Andy Reese, the guitarist, is a dear friend. And I asked Andy, I says, "Could you think you could pull together the rhythm section of the Jumpers to play on this tune? And I'd like you to produce." And he said yes. And I got Brad and Billy from the Time Jumpers and Andy. And then I asked a friend of mine, Mark Jordan, who played keyboards on Midnight at the Oasis with Maria Muldaur. Yeah. He was with Van Morrison. He was with Jackson Browne. Great keyboard player. I asked him to come in and play, and we went down to Crystal Gale's studio in Nashville and recorded this song. Peter eventually wanted to produce the vocal, and he produced. I did the lead vocal up here with Jim producing the lead vocal, but I think the song really turned out great. Oh, and the orchestration, halfway through, the orchestra comes in, and the orchestration was done by a fellow by the name of Robbie Robinson. Now, that's not the guy from the band. It's Robbie Robinson. Yeah. That's who I'm talking about. And he's been Frankie Valli's music director for 40 years.
Jeez, wow. It's amazing. It's amazing that when you start talking to people, this person knows this person who you know, but you knows this one. It's 6 degrees of 6 degrees of Scott and May in this case.
Pretty much.
Awesome, very good. Well,
this is a beautiful ballad. I wrote it for my wife, and boy, it certainly turned out great. I listen to this, I go, I can't believe it's me.
Awesome. A Better Man. We're going to feature that right now. It's from the album Isle of View from my dear friend, Scott May.
I didn't have a clue, I didn't know at all. I was a cold outsider until your call. No way of knowing, never took the ride. No spark of comfort to kindle the fire inside. Then out from the blue, a touch of madness, your love shined through, erased the sadness, and now I know it's heaven's plan. Your love saved me and made me a better man. A better man than I believed I'd ever be. The day I found a woman who believed in me. A better man I finally am, my father's son. Look at me now, changed by your love. The reason you made it right. The bells were silent, you made them chime. I knew the moment I touched your hand. Your love saved me and made me a better man. A better man than I believed I'd ever be. The day I found a woman who believed in me. A better man I finally am, my father's son. Look at me now, changed by your love. I was out and humbled by the lessons life had taught. From the heights that I had tumbled to the battles I had fought. Then you looked beyond what others saw, and still I can't conceive. Somehow through your eyes you saw no better man than me. A better man. I was locked inside myself until you turned the key. I have waited for this moment since my life began, and it may sound crazy, but your love, baby, your love saved me, oh, and made me a better man.
Gosh, what a pretty one right there. A better man from Scott May on the Someone You Should Know podcast. Besides doing everything that he is, he's a master of this. He's a master of that. He's also an author. You've written children's books. What are some of the titles that we should be looking for?
Well, the Outer Space Earl.
Outer Space what? Earl?
Outer Space Earl.
Outer Space
E-A-R-L.
Outer Space Earl.
Which I wrote with, was created by a fellow named Kurt Reitz. And I wrote the Earl books in conjunction with my daughter Stephanie. I had the Yuggs, Y-U-G-G-S, which is a story about cavemen. And if you go on Amazon and look for Short Mountains, the series, we did a bunch of long form read-alongs with music, which I produced, casted, scored, recorded, did all the music for all of those, and we won some awards actually for that stuff, and because they were really, really good books, and the artists that Kurt put together was great. The books were really, really fine. I've written books. I've co-authored books on financial planning. I did a story about weight loss, which anybody knows me, I'm a big effing mortadell, and I wrote a book about weight loss. Yeah. I co-wrote a gal's kind of autobiography journey on losing a lot of weight and keeping it off, and I wrote books about focus and focus in education, and so
that's amazing, bud.
A lot of different things.
Amazing. The next feature we're going to talk about is my personal favorite. This is something we've been doing since this show kicked off in the 90s. Tales from the Road. This is those infamous road stories where things didn't go quite as planned. I know you've had a few through the years. What would you say Scott May's Tales from the Road might be? Well,
two things. And, I read that, and the Ides of March, I have to say, the Ides of March are wonderfully behaved, no bad habits, no scandals, no nothing, and we're amazingly well managed by ourselves and managed to, level heads and no craziness. So I really don't have any Ides of March weird road stories like that because, we're well behaved and cool and organized, and that's why the band's been together for 60 years. However, I do have a Judy Tenuta one.
All right, lay it on us.
I'm a big devotee of theater pipe organ, mighty Wurlitzers, the stuff you see, coming up on elevators in some theaters, the instruments that were designed to accompany silent movies back in the day. That's a big part of my life. And Judy calls me one day and says, we're playing Radio City Music Hall.
I've heard of it.
You heard of it in New York City.
Absolutely.
We were going to back up Suzanne Vega, open the show for Suzanne Vega. And I said, Radio City Music Hall, oh my God, I've got to play the pipe organ there. It's one of the most famous pipe organs in the world, the largest Wurlitzer theater pipe organ that Wurlitzer ever built. I got to play it. And I'm connected in the theater organ world, so I made my calls, and sure enough, I got the permission and clearance to play the theater pipe organ at Radio City Music Hall. A dream for me, a bucket list like you wouldn't believe. Anyway, so the show comes, and now I get to open the show. 5,500 people, sold-out house at Radio City Music Hall, and I get to open the show. Now, Judy at that time, instead of bringing my synthesizers, I was going to play the pipe organ for Judy's show. We had 15 minutes at the top of the show. And so there's the consoles of the organ on either side of the stage, and they're behind a curtain. So I went back there, and the organist says, okay, in order to get yourself seen, there are two buttons, these big garage door open buttons underneath the console. You press one to open up the curtains where the console is, and another one, and it slides the console out on this motorized thing so the audience can see you. Because whatever you do, make sure you press the left side first to open the curtains before you push the right side to put you through, because you couldn't do them at the same time because it was too far to reach, and you had to open the curtains first and let the curtains open before you went through, because there were chains at the bottom of the curtains. The chains had come up. If you went through the curtains without opening them first, the chains would hit you in the head. Well, I think you can see what's coming.
Uh-huh.
I was a little spooked and I never had stage fright but twice in my life, and that was the first time I really had bad stage fright, because I was playing the organ I always wanted to play, and my cue came at the beginning of the show, 5,500 people, and what do? I pressed the right side first to start the console coming out, and I started the left side. And so, of course, I come through the curtains with the spotlight on me. The chains hit me in the head. It was completely nutty. That's not the end of the story.
Oh, but wait, there's more.
But wait, there's more. I used to play Exodus.
Oh, yeah.
The theme from Exodus, that was Judy's entrance music. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And this magnificent pipe organ. And I had the joke of coming through the curtain first. I started playing ba-da-bum-ba-da. And Judy made her entrance at Radio City Music Hall. There are secret entrances and secret staircases on the side of the walls of the theater where the Rockettes used to come out, and it looked like they were drifting down from heaven. It's camouflage in the side of the building. It's really beautiful and amazing. And you can't see the door. The door opens up magically. Now, I'm on one side of the stage. I'm house right, and Judy's going to enter on from 2 stories up, house left. I play the cue. The huge 5 spotlights, 5 super troopers go to the door where Judy's supposed to open. The door doesn't open. She doesn't make her entrance. So I stop. I start again. The light goes off. Ba-da, bang, da-da, da-da-da-da-da-da. Light zing on the side of the stage. Door doesn't open. This happens another couple of times. I turn around, I look at the audience. I got a big laugh because Judy's not showing up. I find out later Judy's arguing with her manager behind the door. And again, I can't, it was just like she's having a huge fight. And she says, I'm not going out. Let Shadrach, which was my pseudonym for playing with Judy. I was Shadrach, the keyboard player. Let Shadrach play the pipe organ for 15 minutes. I'm not doing the show. F you, I'm not going out. Finally, Winston, her manager, pushes the door open and pushes Judy out. She almost goes flying over the edge from 2 stories up into the audience, and she walks down on stage, and we did our show. But that made playing at Radio City Music Hall, that made it very distinctive for me.
Absolutely. You almost get beheaded. She doesn't want to go out on stage. Gets pushed out on stage. It looks like a comedy routine more than anything else. Well, she is doing comedy, but it's just
that was unintentional.
Unintended comedy. Absolutely. Great story, man. Thanks for sharing it, Scott. Let's talk about your socials. People want to know next time you're playing with Ides or what's going on. Social links that we should know about so we can.
Sure. I'm on Facebook / Scott May Music. Scott May, M-A-Y, like the month, music, one word, at SRMQZQ, I think, but if you go to my website, all my links are there.
What we'll do is we'll have it down in the show notes.
ScottMayMusic.com, and so we've got a bunch of shows. We just did a show with a 29-piece orchestra with the Ides of March. And so that's going to be available soon, and both of my records are available. And for those of you who know me from the Kevin Matthews show for Earl's theme, that's also on my website. And my books, if you go put me up on Amazon, you can get all my books, the stuff I've been involved with, on Amazon, and there you go.
All right, very good. But we're going to wrap it up with one that is actually from his first album called Outside the Inside, a rockin' little ditty called Love Song 369. What's the story on Love Song 369?
It's my wife's lucky numbers.
Ah, wonderful.
Everything. It's amazing that where we see 369 or 693 everywhere we go. And the writing of the song was inspired by the music of Laura Nyro, and the early Blood, Sweat, and Tears, Al Cooper, who's a friend of mine, and so I wanted to do a 1960s brass rock, rock R&B, blue-eyed soul type thing. Great sax solo at the end with Steve Eisen of the Ides, and that's the Ides of March brass on there. And so there you go.
Awesome. Very good. We're wrapping the show with it. It's called Love Song 369. Our guest this time, my friend Scott May. Scott, it has been an absolute delight to have you on. Thank you so much for being another person in our family, the growing family of the Someone You Should Know podcast.
Thanks so much. It's been a blast. What fun, and anytime.
1, 2, 3, 4. Throughout the years I've walked the line. I've broken hearts and had mine broken. So many times said I love you, but those words shouldn't have been spoken. Now here comes you, stepping from the shadows, with the rod looking all your glory. You took me down with just one smile, like a page from a romance story. Down deep in places I can't touch, there's a yes I can't deny. I couldn't stop my love for you, and I wouldn't want to try. After darkening days, I saw your light. You took the shattered man and you made him right. So do you, I'll hold on tight. Oh, my precious 369. When you meet the right one, you'll hear the thunder. You'll know the magic spell that you're under. When I saw you, the earth started shaking. I was sky high from the love that we were making. After darkening days, I saw your light. You took the shattered man and you made him right. So do you, I'll hold on tight. My precious 369. Oh, my precious 369. 369. Oh, you're so fine. 369. You're so fine. 369.
Hi, this is Rick Anthony, thanking you again for listening to this episode of Someone You Should Know. Now, if you're an aspiring musician or an established musician that's looking for a little exposure, I invite you to drop us a line at someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. That's someoneyoushouldknowpodcast@gmail.com. Also, I invite you to tell a friend about the Someone You Should Know podcast. I thank you for tuning in this time, and I invite you to check us out next time on the Someone You Should Know podcast, because you never know who's going to show up. Until next time, remember, God loves you, and so do I.